Hi, my name is Mike Adada, and I'm the CTO of Swift Law North. Joining me here today is Jordan Isringhouse, who's our Chief Legal Officer. How are you, Jordan?
Good, Mike. Thanks.
All right, today we're going to continue our conversations about EFTAs, specifically important definitions and legal standards. So the first question, or really just the first, please just go ahead and tell us a little bit about where EFTA applies and where it doesn't apply.
So the EFTA is one of these laws that it does have pretty broad application, but to figure out how it can cap your liability, and you need to figure out a couple definitional things. You got to figure out if you kind of fit within the coverage of the EFTA. So some of the definitions I think that we're planning on talking about today, they're found in the EFTA, of course. And the first one is really that this account that we're talking about, so the account that the money would have been drawn out of, it needs to be a consumer account. So this is, a definition that's inside the EFTA, and it's very specific. It says the accounts that are at issue where there might be errors have to be consumer accounts. The way that the law defines a consumer account is primarily for personal, family, or household use. So that's pretty easy. This could be like an account that you write checks off of, where you pay bills, where you do all your kind of normal individual non-business banking, where you pay your household bills. What would not qualify is like a business bank account. And this gets a little tricky in some instances because like there are folks that have a business that's in their name, and they might run it out of a bank account that just has their name on it, doesn't have their business on it or something like that. So, but what the court is going to look at, what the statute deals with, is what is the nature of that money and those transactions that are happening on that account. Is it for business purposes, or is it for consumer purposes? Am I paying to put gas in my car? Personal purpose. Am I paying to buy, paper and copier ink and things like that for my business where I'm sending out mailers? Yeah, that's a business purpose. Even though it's just your name on the account, that's not determinative. We have to look at the nature of what's in that account, figure out if it's consumer or business, and so the EFTA is only going to apply if it's consumer.
Okay, and is this similar to the consumer debt requirement under the FDCPA?
Yeah, it's identical. Okay. It's consumer debt, personal, household, family use, only things like that can be covered by the EFTA. So, but that kind of leads into, I think, maybe like the second kind of circumstance that you have to figure out that you're dealing with definitionally under the EFTA, and it has to be an unauthorized electronic transaction or electronic funds transfer. So the unauthorized part is really, really, really critical. So to be unauthorized, it cannot be initiated by you. Like you can't have any role in the pressing of go, of the transmitting of the information that causes that transaction. So I see that commonly with like phishing scams, for example. So someone gains the trust of an individual, gains access to their bank account, and then they say, they say, hey, please execute this transaction. Like we have to reverse this. And the person says, okay, or they're obviously being misled. They're being lied to, of course, but being lied or misled to doesn't make it such that you're not doing the transaction. So just think about it as if you did it, it's not unauthorized. It's unfortunately under the eyes of the law, not under my eyes, but it's authorized. Unfortunately, it's not going to be covered by the EFTA. So yeah, again, if you authorize it, you clicked OK on the actual transaction, we probably can't capture it under the EFTA. But that then leads to one of the other kind of definitions. It needs to be an electronic transaction, and so there's kind of some characteristics of an electronic transaction. It basically instantaneously takes money out of an account using some sort of electronic means. It could be an ATM. It could be, happening on a computer interface. It could happen on your phone. It could happen with your debit card. Think of it like a debit card transaction, ATM, electronic check, something like that. Something that happens through a computer to initiate the transaction. That's what it's going to capture.
Are there any categories of things that don't qualify as electronic transactions?
There are, and it's really important to remember what those are. Those are things like paper checks. So in contrast to what I was just saying, like an electronic check, a paper check. So you write it out, someone takes it to the bank, or they wash the check and they take it to a bank and put a new payee on it or something like that. That's not an electronic transaction. Does it mean auto debits to your account? So like if you set up an auto debit with your cable provider, your internet provider, and you authorize them to charge it every single month, it's not going to cover those transactions. And that's a very specific carve out. Like it is an electronic transaction, don't get me wrong, but it's just a carve out in the statute that they didn't want to include. So and it also wouldn't include transfers that don't result in automatic charges. So like for example, like a credit card transaction, as opposed to a debit card transaction where that money is immediately gone, immediately pulled out of your account. So, and I think kind of one of the final categories I think of when I think of things that aren't covered by the EFTA are wire transfers. They're just not. They're not. I mean, and when I say they're not, of course, there's exceptions to everything under the law. They're mostly governed by a totally different set of laws, but there are a very small category of wire transfers that are covered, but most consumer wires are not covered. So I've never taken a case with a wire that was known to be just not a consumer wire. So yeah, and so those are kind of some of the definitional things that are important in terms of what's the scope, what's covered, what's not, things of that nature.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. Yeah, if there's any more questions, obviously let us know in the sessions, in the weekly sessions, or in the chats as well. Thank you.